So Psalm 11:3 says that if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? And so we live in a world where terrorism is rising because of the satanic rage that inflames it. And the economy is teetering because of the fiscal foolishness that undergirds it. And the election is looming. And everyone is left, frankly, with a choice between, it seems, competing debaucheries. And someone asked me this morning, well, what should I vote for? We don't tell people how to vote. We encourage you to vote. And if you just Google, how should a follower of Christ vote, I think you'll find a lot of material there to be helpful to you. And I'm not going to say anything on that further. But I do know that a lot of people in our world and in our church family, more importantly to me, are kind of saying, what are we supposed to do? First of all, let's start with some questions, and I'll give the question, you give the answer. Are we to be wringing our hands in fear? No. Are we to be shouting at the darkness in anger because it's difficult to live for the Lord in this culture? Should we run for the hills and find a cave to hide in? No, what we should do is we should strengthen the foundations. If the foundations are destroyed, what should the righteous do? And kind of counterintuitively, God's Word instructs us that in times of moral decline, in times of, frankly, shocking disinterest in the God upon whom this nation is founded, the Bible says that judgment is to begin at the house of God. And instead of shouting at the culture and what they're getting wrong, we're supposed to get a mirror and look at ourselves, like the prayer that was just read and so beautifully prepared by some people in our church. So the foundations, the Bible is God's Word, Jesus is God's Son, the cross is God's only provision for man's forgiveness. The Holy Spirit is God's provision for our living a life of victory. These are foundational subjects that we have visited before. Now today, if you would open your Bibles to 1 Timothy chapter 3, you'll notice that the message title is not in your notes. Did you see that there? Just blanks. And the reason is because I can't have you shutting down before I even get into the subject. So I didn't want you to have your guard up. And did you know that there's two things that preachers would prefer not to address? I'm going to be speaking later this year for Greg Laurie in California, and he sent me a text yesterday and asked me to speak on one of the subjects. Why? Because preachers don't like to speak on these subjects themselves because they're the two main subjects that make us vulnerable to self-interest. Well, you're only speaking on that because you know the church needs X. You know what the two subjects are? A giving, and church attendance. Greg wants me to speak on number one. Thankfully, today I'm actually going to speak to you on number two. So, the title of the message, take a deep breath. Turn to your neighbor and say, buckle up, Martha. Come on, here it comes, here it comes. Title of the message, Why We, you can't even handle this. I don't know if I should finish it. Why we go to church every week. A conviction. Now, as we kind of start getting into this, wow, you could cut the air in here with a knife right now. As we start getting into this, I want to remind you the kind of church you've decided to attend. You decided to attend a Bible church where the preacher is supposed to be much less concerned about your response to the message and much more concerned about his faithfulness to the book you're holding. All right, you with me on that? Yeah. So just remember, you could have gone to Comfort Church, you could have gone to Smiley Church. Those are all around. You blew it. Okay? And I'm so glad you're here. And we've been for a long time, we've been about not a quantity of disciples, but about a quality of discipleship, which means that in order for you to go further with Christ, in order for us to go deeper in Christ, we're willing to talk about some things that aren't as easy to talk about. We like it that way. And so I'm just reminding you, actually, when I was preparing this message, it kind of reminded me of that scene. Do you remember in the Rocky movie where Apollo Creed is dead because of that Clubber Lang guy, and then Rocky comes out? Is this like Rocky 3 or something? And then Rocky comes out. Well, anyway, I just dug it out for you. Watch this.
I'll bust you up.
Go for it.
Well, here we go. The war is
Isn't
on.
that awesome? So what I'm trying to say really is, I'm going to bust you up. I knew you would get that. Come on, I'm going to bust you up. All right, perfect. I love the way you are. So, 1 Timothy 3:15. Let me just give you the context super quickly. Here they come, 7 reasons why we go to church every week. The first one from 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 15 is because it strengthens truth foundation. We need the foundations are destroyed. What can the righteous do? And we want to strengthen the truth foundations. So 1 Timothy 3:15, the context is the church. Qualifications for elders, qualifications for deacons, roles at the end of chapter 2. And in chapter 3, verse 14, he says, I hope to come. You looking at it? Come on. I hope to come to you soon, Paul said to Timothy, older Paul, younger Timothy, a protege, a disciple. But I'm writing these things to you so that if I delay, you may know how we ought to behave in the household of God. The household of God, actually, I don't know why they translate that household. It's just oikos, which means house. And interesting, make note of this, there's a way that we're supposed to behave in God's house. Now, have you ever seen a professional basketball player block a shot or a defensive back intercept a football? And they're always like, not in this house, not in my house. You don't do that. Well, this is what's really interesting is God has a house. And God has some things that he wants in his house, and there's some things he doesn't want. How many people think God should have what God wants in God's house? And what God wants in his house is his children, his family together every week. There is a way we ought to behave in the household of God, which is the church, lest there be any doubt what he's talking about. The church of the living God, a pillar and buttress of the truth. Not sure about that word buttress. It seems like somebody who was into Gothic architecture chose that translation. In the Greek, when the New Testament was written, well, you know, in Notre Dame, for example, they have these things called flying buttresses. If you're into church architecture, frankly, I'm falling asleep saying this to you. So if I just like, oh gosh, that was so boring. And if someone come and wake me up, right? Here's what he's trying to say. The church supports the truth. The church holds up the truth, okay? And I don't know about your life, but I'm guessing that in your family or in your extended family, sometimes as a Christ follower, you got to take some hard stands as it relates to the truth. And I know for a fact some of you live in a neighborhood and your kids play in soccer leagues and you work at a factory, at an office, at a business where everybody doesn't think that what you think is awesome, and church is the place you got to come back to every week to be reminded about what is actually true. Okay? And we need that, and God made us in such a way that we need it weekly. Everyone say weekly. Now, this word here, church, God's house, the word is actually ecclesia. Ecclesia comes from 2 words in the original, ek, which means out, and kaleo, which is to call. And so this is why you may have heard it said that the church is the called out ones. I love these baptisms, and I hope we never get tired of the God at Work videos. And when you've seen, incredibly, when you've seen thousands of these, you kind of know how it happens. I've told you this before. This is everyone's testimony. You know, I was going along thinking I was too sexy for my shirt, and God dropped a boulder on my life. I thought I didn't need God, and then I found out I was very wrong. And how did that happen? Well, the label on the boulder changes. For some people, it's an existential crisis. For some people, it's a profound loneliness. For some people, it's a returning to the treasure their parents gave them, but they couldn't see it as such earlier in life. For some people, it's a health issue, a bankruptcy in finance or friendship or God knows, but something brought me to the end of I'm awesome. And God was like, hey, over here. And we're like, whoa, where has that been all my life? And we get it, but then we find out after we get it that he got us. And we, listen, loved ones, we are the called out ones. We are strangers and aliens, Peter says, in this world. We are the different ones, and church is the place where we get reminded that we're not weird. Some of y'all are a bit weird. Turn to your neighbor and say, that might be you he's talking about. Come on, easy now. You weren't supposed to say that if you didn't know the person. So called out to what? Super important. First of all, called out to the person, Jesus Christ, but also called out to a place, the church, a new family, and also called out to a people then, to a person, Jesus Christ, to a place, the church, to a people, the family of God. Say, well, you know, I'm more about Jesus. I've never been that much about the church. Well, that's sad because Christ loves the church, the Bible says, and gave himself for it. Jesus declared, on this rock I will build my church. And here the Holy Spirit, through Paul, declares that the church of the living God is a pillar and buttress of the truth. And so church, why do we come to church weekly? Because it strengthens our truth foundation. I met a guy this week, and he said to me, what do you think I ask people when I meet them? It's always the same. I met a guy this week, and he said to me, oh, I listen to Walk in the Word every day, and you know, that's encouraging. I'm baffled by how much God uses that, but I'm a church guy. This is what I'm about, what's happening right now, about us. And so I say to him the same thing I always say, well, that's awesome. What do I say? Where do you go to church? And surprisingly, as I frequently hear in those situations, well, you know, my wife, I already know, right? He doesn't have an answer. And he, well, you know, and it's always the same. We got hurt, we got disappointed, we got frustrated, here's the thing. You don't have the right to give up on the Church of Jesus Christ. He's not giving up on it. We're not giving up on it. And if you have started to live that way, you're living wrong, okay? That today, Jesus Christ is building his church. Thank God for the Parachurch and Campus Crusade and Mercy Ships and 1,000 other things I can think of. But that's not the church, okay? We are about the church. And with all due respect to giving to other things and other things that have risen up, they're not in the Bible. We're about the Scriptures. I want you to be known for. We gave our lives to, we raised our kids at, we spent ourselves for a church. So all of that is truth. And, you know, so many Christians have a conviction about the Bible's God's Word. So many Christians have a conviction about Jesus as God's Son. So many Christians have conviction about Christ is coming again soon. So many Christians have convictions about so many things I could enumerate. But it is increasingly shocking to me how many followers of Jesus don't have a conviction about the church and about weekly church attendance. Say, well, I listened to the podcast. Please forgive me for in whatever way I have given the impression that going to church is 70% about listening to a sermon. It is about so much more than that, and I'm going to get into all of that right now. Here's the second thing. It strengthens truth foundation. It invites God manifestation. I just can't wait to quote this verse. I love it so much. Psalm 27:4. Do you know this? Psalm 27:4. One thing have I desired, and that will I earnestly seek, that I may dwell in the presence of the Lord all the days of my life and gaze upon his beauty forever. Well, not quite hallelujah, because you should have looked it up, because I did this week, and again I have to say sorry, I have been misquoting that verse. I do not know where the gaze upon his beauty forever came from, because it isn't in the Bible. It must be in a song lyric. It must have creeped into my quoting from a book I read, because it's not in God's book. What God's book says at the end of that verse, one thing have I desired, and that will I earnestly seek, that I may dwell in the presence of the Lord all the days of my life and gaze upon his beauty. Next phrase. Yeah, and meditate or inquire, to focus my thinking in his temple. There you got it. At church, y'all. At church is where we experience the manifest presence of God. You don't get this in your basement. You don't get this in a walk at the forest preserve. There's something that happens when God's people come together. And when God met with Abraham, that sacrifice was on an altar. And then when Moses and the children of Israel, do you know what happened then? What happened then was God came down in the tabernacle. And then he came down in the permanent place called the temple. And in the New Testament, you say, well, we're the temple, right? And we collectively, you look in Scripture, God's manifest presence is in the place of worship. And here we gather again, asking God to do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And some here are here today needing strength and encouragement, and others are here needing wisdom, and others are here needing comfort, and others are here needing commissioning for a new season of life and a new focus about what their energies will be spent on. And somehow in all of it, in the totality of your arriving and conversing and your standing and worshiping and your sitting and leaning in, I don't know of a better people to preach to on the face of the earth than I've been around. But as we thank you for that so much, and as we lean in and open wide and move toward prayer and dismissal and further fellowship in prayer as we go, it's all of it. It's all of it. And I haven't been given the option of, I need it this week, I think this is a good week for me. No, you're needed here whether you need it or not. We're going against the grain of consumer Christianity. In fact, I'll say more about that in just a moment. The church is the place where we come to get life's questions answered. And you say, well, James, can you help me a little bit with that? Well, the questions are pretty straightforward. Who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? What's the purpose of life? What's the meaning of life? What's heaven like? How can you know you're going to get there? You know, all of the above. You say, no, but talk about that manifest presence thing. And well, I've said before that a lot of people confuse omnipresence and manifest presence. So people are like, what are you talking about, God's manifest presence at church? All right, well, God's omnipresence is the biblical teaching that God is everywhere. The psalmist said, where can I go from your presence? If I go into the heaven, you're there. If I go into the lower part of the earth, you're there. If I take the wings of the morning and fly to the uttermost parts of the earth, even there your right hand upholds me. And so God is everywhere. Everyone say it. Come on, say it. God is everywhere, but the fact that God is everywhere does not mean that God is working equally everywhere. God is everywhere is the doctrine of omnipresence, but he is not working equally everywhere. That's the doctrine of manifest presence, and most people don't have it. God's not equally working in all the homes in this church. God's not equally working in all the churches in this community. God's not working equally everywhere. And some people are actually, and we are among those who are prayerfully considering what are the things that promote God's manifest presence in our church. Because I'm here to tell you, if God doesn't show up at church this morning, if God doesn't come and meet with his people and move in his people, then why are we even here? That's why Isaiah said, 64:1, "Oh, that you would rend the heavens and come down." That's why Moses said, if you don't go up with us, why would we even go? I'm not going without you, God. Why would you say that to an omnipresent God? You wouldn't say that. You'd say it to a God when you understand the doctrine of manifest presence, that God is not equally everywhere. And we are here today invoking His presence, and I am challenging His people to prayerfully consider that our church attendance as a convenience is mitigating against our desire for Him to manifest His presence here. For God is not particularly interested in those who see Him only as when it works for me. Do you see? And so your presence here, your partnership with us, our elevating of God as the first priority on the first day of the week, this is what we do. This is what we do. And we are the ones who lose when we don't do it. So much so that earlier generations used to call this, they would actually begin every service with a call to worship. And so I'd like to just sing this song for you. No, don't be afraid. And so who knows this? You know it? Well, listen to these words. This is a call to worship where we invite God's manifest presence.
Come thou almighty King.
How many people are glad He's singing?
Help us thy name to sing. Help us to praise. Father, all glorious, over all victorious, come and reign over us, Ancient of Days.
See? Listen to these words.
Come thou incarnate Word, merciful, mighty Lord, our prayer attend.
Right?
Come and thy people bless, and give thy word success. Spirit of holiness on us descend. Come, Holy Comforter,
Right.
thy sacred witness bear in this glad hour. Thou who almighty art, now rule in every heart. Never from us depart, Spirit of power.
And then this.
To thee, great one in three, eternal praises be, hence evermore. Thy sovereign majesty may we in glory see, and to eternity love and adore.
Now that right there, we need every week. God made you in such a way that your week is supposed to begin with that. back to God, back to truth, back to manifest presence, hitting reset, centering on, I'm not big, God is big. My problems aren't big, God is big. My future isn't dark, it's bright because of who He is. We need that. Finish my sentence. Every week. Every week. Now, let me show you more specifically why I'm saying every week in your Bible. Go back with me to Exodus 20. Some of you will recognize that Exodus 20 is reference to the 10 Commandments. Now, it's just remarkable what didn't make the top 10. Did you know that there's nothing in the 10 Commandments about serving? There's nothing in the 10 Commandments about quiet times. There's nothing in the 10 Commandments about who to vote for. Ding, ding, ding. But interestingly, Sabbath is in the 10 Commandments. Jot this third thing down. Why we go to church every week? Because weekly church attendance strengthens truth foundation, invites God manifestation, and stops time inflammation. Most people listening to me right now have a time problem. I can't get to it. I can't get it all done. Why am I always worn out? Why am I always feeling frazzled? Why can't I ever make ends meet? What's the problem exactly? Hands up if you are periodically or regularly or continually frustrated about time. Hands up. Exodus 28. Remember the Sabbath day. Sabbath, when I see Sabbath, I always think rest. So I went back and studied this. I wish I had emphasized this more. Did you know Sabbath doesn't even mean rest? The word Sabbath in the Hebrew, Sabbath, you know what it means? It means, do you know? It means stop. That's what it means. Stop. Desist. Knock it off. What? That thing you do every other day. That thing. Stop doing what you always do and do something different. That's what Sabbath means. Verse 8, remember the stop day to keep it holy. Holy means set apart, different, not like the other 6. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, errands and running around. But the 7th day is a stop to the Lord your God. On it you shall do you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your male servant, female, so no employees working, not your livestock, the sojourner who's in your gates. Really? Really? Can we have a reason? Yes, you can. Verse 11. In 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and the sea and all that is in them, and rested, stopped working on the 7th day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the stop day and made it holy, not like the other days. Now, why did God rest in Genesis 1? Why did He rest? Help me here. Was He tired? Was He needing a timeout? Was He just getting a little frayed around the edges? No, say no, not God. Say it. Not God. Okay, right? Right, God? That's not why. Listen. He did it to make a point. And the point is, I don't need it, but you do. So I will do it to show you how important it is for you to do it. And as our culture has become more and more godless, pretty much now everything that through the last 6 decades wasn't done on Sunday is now done on Sunday. The world says God is nothing, stop day is nothing, and the church, sadly, which Francis Schaeffer said, that the spirit of the age becomes the spirit of the culture becomes the spirit of the church. Sadly, this is where our slippage is. And so we don't stop and hit reset. Now, forget the national polls on church attendance. and disregard the evangelical trends. Even those in Harvest Bible Fellowship, we're just responsible for one church, this one. That's what we're responsible for. And why is frequency of attendance gradually diminishing over the last 5 years in our church? Attendance is up. Year over year, year over 2 years. Attendance is up. Giving is up. Serving is up. But frequency of attendance is not up. People who used to come 6 out of 6 now come 5 out of 6. People who used to come 5 out of 6 now come 4 out of 6. People who used to come 3 out of 6, that's not awesome, come 2 out of 6. I think the reason is that, I'm going to say it, I don't think it's I don't love God. I don't think it's that. It would be a huge mistake for me to think that. So let me just say that I don't think it's I don't love God. And I really don't think it's I don't love this church. I think it's somewhere along the line I let church cross over from a personal soul commitment of gratitude to the God who made me and the people in my church family. I let it slip over into the, when it works for me, I'm under a lot of pressure right now. I'm juggling a lot of things. I'll do it when I can. And I just want to say to you that in moving it from the one to the other, we may be losing far more than we realize. Let me actually go through, because trust me, I talk to a lot of people about this. And just jot this down. Reasons we miss church. Reasons we miss church. I'm about to share y'all's testimony. Number one, people miss church for good reasons. All right, everybody agree with that? Okay, sometimes people miss church for good reasons. For health reasons. You know, the doctor says we got to stay home now for the next month till we have the baby. Or just finish some surgery, I'm on bed rest. Or, I went to church my whole life and I'm just at the season of life now in these later years where so I just want to acknowledge that I get that. Some people in our church have the policemen, there's a lot of people that have a career that requires them to work on the Lord's Day. Which, by the way, in Jewish reckoning, the Lord's Day starts at sundown. So I think Saturday at supper time till Sunday, I think the way we have all this is quite good. There isn't going to be a Sunday night service anytime soon. I know a lot of churches do that, but I feel really good that we have this time that is the first day of the week. And by the way, I know that a lot of people don't think about Sunday as the first day of the week. We think about it as the last day of the weekend. The last part of me time. I work Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday is me time, and I think that's an error. In the early church, worship moved from the Sabbath, the last day of the week, to the first day of the week to celebrate the resurrection. And the Lord's Day, it's called the Lord's Day because it's the day that Jesus rose from the dead on the first day of the week. And so, because first things belong to God, the first moments of my day, the first portion of my income, the first hours of my week, we give the first part of the week to God. And in giving the first part of the week to God, we set the stage for the rest of the week to belong to God. So there are some good reasons, but here are some additional reasons. Extra leisure. Yeah, I was going to go to church, but my buddy called and I got a chance to go golfing, and I didn't golf on Saturday because I was cutting the grass, and I can, I hear it all that I can watch the message online. Seriously, it's just, we're actually gathering data now from the people who watch online to find out why they do it, because we're really wrestling with whether that's even helping people. It might actually be hurting people because it's creating a convenience and communicating erroneously that church is about hearing a sermon, which it most assuredly is not. So extra leisure, my hobby and my girlfriends, and we're going out for breakfast, and we talk about the Lord there, and that's kind of church. And here's a big one. Kids, sports, kids, lessons. And the soccer coach won't let my kid play on the team if he isn't at the Sunday morning practice. Awesome. What a beautiful opportunity you've been given to teach your son about how God comes first. Well, no, but we have real dreams for our kids. Hey, let me help you with your kids' soccer dreams, okay? Really? I got to do that too? I know of one kid in the entire northwest suburbs of Chicago who became a professional soccer player while our kids were growing up. I know of one. And I know of a whole generation of people who attended this church in the 90s, many of whom, sadly, lost their kids to the world. And we're told then, this point, when parents put their kids' activities before worship, kids grow up to put themselves before parents and worship. And I've seen this happen again and again and again. My own daughter-in-law, our first grandson is quite a soccer player, and he's playing this morning, but he was at church last night, but sometimes he has games on Saturday nights, and my daughter-in-law, Kristen, I'm so proud of her, she just said to the coach, you're going to have to live with this, or we're going to have to find a different team. That's it. And we're not going to have our kids missing church to play a game. And there's a conviction. We have a conviction. I'm not mean to others about it. I'm not upset when people don't understand, but I'm not going to, here's the thing. If you spend every weekend telling your kid that he's awesome, he's going to grow up and believe it. And she's not awesome. God is awesome. And everything flows from that. And church is where I drive down the stake of that reality again. Come on, kids, get in the car. We're going to God's house. I was up too late. Well, you'll have to think about that better next week, won't you? Because we're going to God's house. If people at your house say, are we going to church this week? You already have a problem. Trust me when I tell you, those words have never been spoken in my house. Are we going to church this week? Are you breathing? And do you see how important that is? People like most pastors' kids don't even love the Lord. All three of our kids, praise God, were in church last night. We can't wait for Sunday to come. It's the best day of the week. We get to see our favorite people. We get to sing our favorite songs. We get to study our favorite book. We get to return to our treasured things. But none of the reasons I've given you so far are the real reasons. Are you ready for the real reasons? Here it is. I'll give them to you together. Too tired, too busy. It's too tired, too busy. Friends in towns going out of town, got to work late. I can't believe I still don't have that done. You told me you'd paint that bedroom last week. I know, but my bowling league, and just round and round and round, and plates and plates and plates and plates. And nobody ever says this. Get to church, y'all. Get to church. Keep God first. You won't regret it. Nobody ever says that. But God said it. Remember this day to hit stop and reset. And like James, I don't think you know how big the demands are. I don't think you know how hard it is. All right, let me run through a couple of these things with you, all right? You know, my parents are in town, and they didn't even tell us they were coming. I get that. But you're going to have to say to them, hey, we go to church every week. You're welcome to come. You can stay here. What I'm saying is, in climbing over that obstacle, in fact, let me say it this way. Special visitors, special schedule, special circumstances, special exceptions. Listen. The bigger the obstacle you have to overcome to keep your every week at church conviction, the more important it is that you overcome it. All right? In fact, I'd like to just suggest to you that by inserting church at the point of convenience, we have already negated its ability to be what it needs to be. If you're at church this week because it worked out, you're already coming in a deficit position because you didn't come the way that the Lord wants you to come, which is the coming and saying, no matter what, this will happen. And in that determined heart condition, the God who loves us and wants to manifest his presence with us, but does not want to come at our convenience, when we sacrifice to make this first, God sees that. A verse we've been talking about since day one, that in that kind of church, a God first, God's truth first church, it says in 1 Corinthians 14, 24, 25, that if an uninformed person comes in and sees that kind of commitment, that kind of singing, that kind of proclamation, it says, he is convinced by all and judged by all, and the secrets of his heart are revealed. And so falling down on his face, he will worship God and report that God is truly among you. Now, when we come to church because it worked out, we've already negated what we're really going for. And so I'll say it again, the higher the obstacle that has to be overcome, the harder it is for me to get there that week, the more I need to, and the better it will work out when I do. Okay? Now, finally, let me say in this regard, there's only two principles. You're like, James, this doesn't sound like grace to me. This sounds like law. Well, I need you to understand grace better than that, loved one. Okay? I need you to understand that grace, properly understood, is not an escape from duty. Grace, properly understood, is a different way to get to duty. Grace isn't, I can do whatever I want. Okay, that's not grace. Grace is, I'm so grateful, I'm so thankful, I'm going to exceed what was demanded of me and offer it freely through Christ from my heart. Or to say it this way, the distinction between law and grace is not moving from duty to no duty. It is moving from duty as a demand that could not be met to duty as a delight through Christ that we can exceed. Do you see? And the two principles about which this comes up are about things that predates the law. What are the two big principles that predate the law? Things preachers don't want to talk about. Okay? Tithing and Sabbath rest. So tithing, Abraham brought tithes to Melchizedek 500 years before the law was instituted. And God himself rested in creation to make this point. Now, I'm going to connect these two things in this way because this is not a giving message, but I've been preaching in this church forever, and so many people have lived and experienced, and I hope you have too. I've been saying this sentence. You've heard this so many times. In regard to tithing and your finances, 90% with you and God is more than 100% with you on your own. And if you leave God out of your giving, that's what you are on your own. And so many people are like, you know why? Why can't we pay the bills? Why are we always moving from job to job? Why do we always seem to fall behind? Why can't we get on top of this? I'll tell you why, because you don't have God first in your finances. That's why. That's never going to get fixed till God gets first. And just leave that there. Come on, somebody say, I've heard that. I've heard you say that before. Say it. This you have never heard me say. It's the exact same step of faith. You're like, well, we're kind of short right now. How could I begin to give? I mean, we can hardly make ends meet now. I've told you before, 90% with you and God is more than 100% with you on your own. And if you leave God out of your finances, that's what you are. You're on your own. And it feels like that. Why do some people get so blessed? I'm telling you why. It doesn't just apply to your treasure, loved one. It applies to your time. And some of you who would never think of having God's money at your house, take God's time from him. Now, a corporate gathering of worship as in the first portion of the first day of the week is what belongs to God. First things belong to God. And I believe with all my heart that just like the person who doesn't tithe struggles to make ends meet, never can seem to get it figured out. So the person who doesn't give faithfully the first portion of their week to God struggles forever with their time. They're saying yes to the wrong people. They're fearful of offending their mother-in-law. They're constantly juggling the expectations of everyone. But all of those people would fade if God was first in your time. And that gets tested every Lord's Day. Every Lord's Day, you're deciding who's first this week. And if you settle that, as you go back to your cars today, that's been settled this week. And instead of saying, why would I go again? I was just there last week. Oh, my God. You won't believe. Put 10 weeks in a row together. And just like I said, some people have never prayed about anything for 10 days in a row. Some people have never been to church 10 weeks in a row. Never. Because of it, your time is always slipping through your fingers and you can't just seem to get into any routine. But God Himself would help you with that. Let me say it this way. As tithing is to financial management, so weekly church attendance is to time management. You got it? All right. Remember the Lord's Day. To stop. To keep it holy, not like the other days. These, of course, will come more quickly with the time that remains. Because weekly church attendance opposes cultural isolation. You know, we're so isolated in our culture, right? And so many people are like, where's she? Oh, she's down in the basement, under the covers, with her headphones on, holding her iPad, watching Netflix, in the dark. I don't like to watch TV. I like to watch my iPad. I can hold it right up to my face. Because it's just me, right? Church is supposed to dismantle that. You can't get this by yourself. You have to come into a room with people. You have to shake hands with people that you don't know yet. You have to go through, I don't quite remember who that is. You have to make yourself known and know others. And that's why Hebrews 10, 24 and 25 says, let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking assembling together, as is the manner of some. And all the more as you see the day approaching. All in favor of Christ's return? Right? How about Tuesday morning? Right? And wouldn't it be awesome if Christ came back this week? We watched all this nonsense and made ourselves crazy, and He knew all along, I'm taking you out. Right? Wouldn't that be awesome? I mean, right? And as the return of Christ from all signs seems to draw closer, nobody wants to be caught up and say, oh, wow, I wasn't even in church last week. Not forsaking assembling together, as is the manner of some, Hebrews 10, 25, and all the more as you see the day approaching. It opposes cultural isolation. Then it stabilizes habitual vacillation. And I know our church family well enough to know that in Niles and at the cathedral and in Crystal Lake and in Aurora and in Elgin right now as well as here, one of the major issues of this congregation is vacillation. Things are going great and I'm on cloud nine. Things are going terrible and I'm despairing. And the range of fluctuation based on circumstance. Come on, you know what I'm talking about, right? Job was a godly man, and he turned away from evil. But God let him go through a testing, a real trial, and he lost everything. And you know what Job said? Job 1:21. He said, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. See, isn't that awesome? That's stability. You get the stability by bringing your human experience into the ocean of us. You know, in our church this week, the girls volleyball team went downstate, but one of the girls on the volleyball team, her father had a massive heart attack and was on a breathing machine, and now they're hopeful of his recovery, but it's still, and needs our prayer, and tons of people are at the hospital, and people lost their jobs this week, and people sold their business this week and are set for life, and someone heard devastating news this morning, and someone else is so excited because they've been given a clean bill of health, and all of that's happening at the same time, and I bring my individual vacillation and I put it into the ocean of God's faithfulness, and we stand here together, and your hard time's coming again, and you're like, haven't I been through enough? Well, there'll be another season, don't we know? There'll be something else down the road, and we'll go through it together. Church is supposed to be evening all that out for us. It also corrects personal victimization. Oh, my life's the hardest. No one has it as hard as I have it. In Psalm 73, Asaph was sideways over what he called the prosperity of the wicked. Read Psalm 73 in your time with the Lord this week. He's like, I was envious when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. They say what they want, they do what they want, they get away with it, nothing happens to them. Why am I going through all this? And he was in the ditch, upside down with the wheels off. And then in Psalm 73:17, it says, this guy was like stinking thinking, right? Until I went into the sanctuary of the Lord, then I understood their end. See? And so it was only when he came to the house of worship that he got things properly in order. And there is a God, and he's on the throne, and he's in control, and he's working out a plan, and I can't see it necessarily today, but I know how it ends, right? I know how it ends, and I'm going to keep trusting him, see? And that's why we need that every single week. At church, we come and pour our elation and grief into an ocean of humanity and are reminded that to everything there is a season. And then this, finally, it halts self-magnification. Psalm 95, verse 6 says, "Come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are his people, the sheep of his pasture." Amen? We do this together. We do this together. This is your church. This is foundational. This is where we stand. I'm ready to sing. We'll see at church. Come on.